Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Self-Starting Processes, Automated Workflow Initiation in Sequence. I want to encourage all of you actually to participate actively in today's webinar, as we're going to be demonstrating a live demo of an email listener and how it integrates with Sequence BPM. So if you can actually send an email with some kind of customer request to the email address you see on your screen here, you can actually take a part in this webinar, and it will be very helpful for us and very educational for yourself. So take a minute to email sequenceemailtester@gmail.com, and not only will we receive your email as part of our process and as part of our live demo, but you'll also actually get a response from our automated system either during the webinar or immediately afterwards. Okay, so let's go straight to the format of the program and our speakers today. Okay, so the featured speaker today is Shlomo Steinmetz, who is the support team leader for PNMsoft. Shlomo, hello there.
Hi, everyone. We'll be talking a bit later.
Okay, and I'm your co-host, Ellie Stutz, Knowledge Manager for PNMsoft. The format of today's program is as follows. First, we're going to talk about what is automatic workflow initiation, what are self-starting workflows, why to use them, what are the benefits. Then we'll be going straight into Shlomo's live demonstration of our email listener, which automatically kicks off BPM workflows. And then Shlomo, after he shows you the magic, he'll show you the behind-the-scenes look at how he put it all together. And he'll also be talking about some other additional automation possibilities of workflows which can be self-starting through various other ways. And then we'll be taking your questions. So that's the format. You can already send in questions as we go along within the GoToWebinar interface in the questions panel, and we'll be happy to field them. And again, please feel free to send a test email to the address which I showed you previously. Let's just show that one more time. That's sequenceemailtester@gmail.com. Send a short little email, and you'll actually be part of the live demo which we're going to be showing, which Shlomo is going to be showing later on in the webinar. Okay, so that's the format. Let's talk about self-starting workflows. Okay, so workflows in general, we're talking about business process management workflows, which are workflows which ensure that business processes go from one stakeholder in an organization to the next according to a configured set of business logical rules. And in general, these workflows have been, in classic BPM, are normally started by a person. But a self-starting workflow is a workflow that's initiated when an external action occurs, such as an email being received, or a database record being updated, a SharePoint list being updated, and we'll see that Sequence can handle that, or a web service being consumed. So we're talking about an external stimulus which kicks off a workflow such that a human being does not have to initiate the workflow on his own. That's the idea. That's a self-starting workflow in BPM. And then the question the natural next question is, what are the benefits? Why would you want a self-starting workflow? So the benefits are many, and some of them are very common sense. But just going through them, self-starting workflows clearly save human resources because you don't need the human to kick off the workflow. They ensure that processes don't fall through the cracks, because if you have a human being starting a BPM workflow, that human being might err and might not always start the workflow that needs to be started, or might miss starting the workflow, whereas if it's automated, done correctly, it doesn't fall through the cracks. There's an improved response time. Say you have customers who are requesting a service via email, as in our example, as you'll see soon in our live demo. If you're waiting for a human to start the workflow, so you're going to have a non-ideal response time, whereas if the workflow is automated, then you cut down on the response time. And finally, an automated system can detect changes that humans often might miss. And that gets down to simply the details of an automated system. The automated system can analyze large amounts of data very quickly, and obviously these are very common sense things, but the fact that they're common sense doesn't make them less true, and we're really talking about saving human resources, saving time, and accuracy here. Those are the main benefits. So, and when it comes to, I would say, the evolution of BPM process automation, you could look at it in a kind of evolving manner in that processes, maybe classical processes, were initiated manually or even operated manually. There was no automation. This is maybe even before BPM on the left side. Then we're starting to see systems, I guess still pre-BPM, which are partially automated, where human beings are governing part of the logic, but the machine is taking care of some of the automation. In the middle of the screen, fully automated processes that are manually started. I guess you could label this as classic BPM, where a human being kicks off the process, but then the BPM system takes it from one person to the next within an organization, or from one system to the next when there's integration. Now then we have self-starting processes that require some human intervention, and self-starting processes that require no human intervention. And the demo that we're going to see is really an example of actually the second to last there. But we can do also the last one where there's no intervention. And I would say that every case demands a different solution. Some cases require full automation, and some require some human intervention. The human element is still a very prime element when it comes to the world of BPM. We did a webinar about half a year ago, actually it was now almost coming up to a year ago, about case management, which showed the real cooperation between the intelligent knowledge worker and the BPM system. So that leads straight into our live demo of an email listener within Sequence. And to show you that, I'm going to give the floor to Shlomo Steinmetz, support team leader here at PNMsoft. So I'll just give Shlomo the field.
Hi everyone. Hope you can hear me well. So, like Ellie said, we've covered the theory of it all. When we're looking at an email listener scenario, it's valid for the demo and it's valid for pretty much any business implementation that you might want to implement over here. Somebody sends an email request to whatever the organization is, and it's received in it lands in the inbox, the machine inbox, as it were. The Sequence email listener downloads it via POP3 and processes it. Starts the initial saving and processing. It's parsed for the different parts from the metadata of the email and the actual subject and body, so that they can all be used inside the Sequence workflow like any other information you would fill into a form or any other interface into Sequence. Right now, the only logic that we have is junk mail filtering, but of course you can add any filtering or other as you see fit. The process is, of course, kicked off through the API. Workflow actions, meaning people work hard in the middle in order to do whatever needs to be done based on this email request. And this is typical, proper BPM. That when you're done, the person that sent the request and any other significant stakeholders in the workflow get a sort of case summary or a ticket summary, depending on the context, with this was the input, this was what we did in the middle, and what was decided ABC accordingly. We built our demo around that sort of scenario. Of course, there's an infinite amount of room to maneuver over there, and let's have a look. Let's see how the magic happens. So, as you can see, I just dragged in a view of this particular email listener demo. Each of these lines over here everybody's familiar with this, represents a single workflow instance. Each workflow instance represents a single incoming email that was sent since the beginning of this webinar. I suppose we should first come, first serve. The first email in is instance number 1040. As you can see, the email listener is actually, for those of you who are come from the code, it actually inherits from the form activity. So in its human interface, it's very similar to any other form that you would design in sequence. Only it, of course, collects its information from the actual the email package that was received. We have all the metadata that you can get in a SMTP header, the from, to, carbon copies, blind carbon copies, the date it was sent. For some reason 2 appears there twice. That must be my mistake, sorry. The email's priority, the subject, and over here on the bottom, although you can't see it, the entire white background real estate is an HTML rendering of the workflow as it was sent to us. This parsed information, as you can see, is created over here in the email activity, and like any other listener activity, it kicks off the first activity that follows it. We call this the routing task, and this, in our case, we made it a human activity, meaning we're looking at the same information that we saw before, a little bit filtered, a little bit different, just for principle's sake more than anything else. And the person over here will read this and decide which of the departments it has to be routed to. This can, of course, be automated. You can use business rules to parse out the information and choose and split out over here as you see fit. And more importantly, if you choose, if this is a human activity, then what you'll get in your email, what in our case, James Luckford, that's a real person. I just borrowed the identity. And what you see in your email, what James or whoever the person responsible gets, you can get a well-designed rendering of this request. It's the name of the workflow, and all the metadata over here divided up nicely. The date, the subject, if there are any links that go along with this, and then inside the body of the email, the original body, as it was sent inside. This makes it, of course, easy if we're not talking about a high-volume solution of incoming emails. So you can get it. You see the email as it comes in. But we can go back now to the main stuff. Our human intervention over here. James received the details, read the email body in context, and decides for whatever for this purpose, this has to go to the finance department. This is just a simple simulation. From here and onwards, the division, we could just as well have sent, and we'll have a look at it quickly, a different one to a different department. It's a simple business rule that we'll have a look at in a bit. Whatever work, this is the simulated work that has to happen inside this workflow, the branching about, and eventually the work is done. And very importantly, if you can see over here on the left, the workflow summary is a message that goes out to the people involved in this workflow, in this case to the person that sent the original email, and it says it has the details. Your email was accepted at this date, was processed by groups 1, 2, 3, and 4. Decisions were made. Again, we take all that information from inside the forms. We're familiar with that. And finally, the decision was this, and the workflow is now completed with these conclusions. In the same way that we did that first to finance, just wanted to quickly show you. You can get a different email, a different person, different contents. And over here, again, the business rule, we'll see it in a second, the switch. You send it to a different department, and it's processed accordingly to completion.
Shlomo, if I could just jump in there. So I guess what we've seen there is the automatic email initiation by someone sending in one of our webinar attendees sent in that initial email that got into Sequence. Sequence kicked off the process automatically. The routing step, which you showed, where James decided which department to send that to, that was, I guess, in a situation where the staff member in the organization who's using this process needs to make the call because it's not something the machine can decide. But alternatively, Sequence can be configured to parse the email, to analyze the content, and make that type of decision on its own if that's the case, if that's the requirement, if that's the needs of the organization. So there too, you've got the kind of all machine or machine plus human intervention. That both are optional.
Absolutely. I showed this for one scenario, and we can indeed, it can be a simple parsing looking for a specific word or string, or until you can create your own custom activity that you feed it the text, and it does employs whatever logic in order to give it a rating or an urgency or a category, and based on that. And once you have the information inside the Sequence instance, you can do anything you please with it.
Okay, so I think what you've just shown right now, I mean, it looks simple, but really there has been a little magic here. Email has been integrated with BPM. You have systems that are just email listeners. You have systems that are just BPM. And here we have a perfect integration of where a customer request comes in by email, kicks off a BPM process, and it went by it went by now in 5 minutes, but this is not an easy, this is kind of in a way a magical thing because we have a real boost in efficiency here for the organization.
Yeah, of course it's the result of a lot of hard work of a lot of people over here at PNMsoft, and it is indeed a very efficient way to do business.
Can we see behind the scenes? Can we see how the trick was done?
Absolutely. We'll get to that in a few minutes. One last component of the processing of the emails, we actually divided up, because we're talking about SharePoint over here. We're talking about an environment that's conducive to document management and everything else. If you send any attachments in the workflows that you create, we actually the code component will take that attachment and send it on a date-based folder division into a folder in a document folder in SharePoint. So you can see, for instance, these last files over here, each one has a reference to a specific workflow instance ID, 1047, 1045, 1043. You can see the corresponding ones over here, each of these. And if you choose within the workflow, you can of course link from a specific task or a specific email, and even include that attachment inside as a sequence attachment to messages and tasks that you send. So if a contract is received and there's a lawyer that has to review that contract, it gets stored over here, it gets uploaded to this document folder and stored over here, and it can be sent as an attachment to somebody, and even later reintegrated into this document list as a new version or as an approved version after that the legal advice was taken.
Shlomo, can I ask, what about inside the email itself? Is the formatting preserved by Sequence, or let's say someone adds an image inside the email? Is Sequence able to preserve that formatting?
We tried to the best of our ability to allow anything that you can throw at it, be it Unicode characters and emails and images inside the email. We would have to, in other words, I would say that it's very likely that whatever you send will be properly incorporated, the images and the formatting. You might have to tweak it. You would have to test on a large mass or on different language bases. It might require some tweaking, but it's pretty much robust.
Wonderful.
So, like I was saying before, every day a new folder is created over here, so you can see, so it can be easier to manage. Each, besides the images, the attachments that you intend to include, whenever you send, you know, an image inside your signature or anything like that, it also gets uploaded to here. No way around that. It's an attachment, and that's how it's treated. That too, if you choose, based on the file type or anything, could be dealt with so that it's divided up into the important and unimportant stuff. So, like Ellie asked before, the magic or the hard work has to happen somewhere. Somebody's got to do it, and that's what I'd like to look at over here. Our specific implementation over here is, again, very simple. You saw we stepped through pretty much all of the available steps through the runtime, but I'll cover the details over here. It starts off, of course, with the cool activity, the custom email listener. Each activity type, you can see, has in Sequence 7 has its unique icon on the top corner. This email icon, this entire activity, is a custom activity. And the way it works is it's an add-on to the background runtime service, to the built-in Sequence background runtime service. The background runtime service is pre-designed to allow this sort of add-ons. Normally, this bit of configuration inside the file is remarked out. You can see the original format over here. All you have to do is unremark it and point it to your assembly. The name, the version, the culture, and the public token. And the important bit over here is the assembly that you wrote, your custom assembly. In this case, you can see the name over here, has to be placed in the assembly, in the global assembly cache on the server. And what happens is, it's very similar to if anybody's familiar with the old westerns. The train would travel by a specific town, to hook on the outside, and would grab the mailbag without ever stopping. And that's what happens over here also. The background runtime service says, oh, I have a free rider, as it were. I have to run this every time I come around at intervals of 1 minute, this email listener. And every time the BRS comes back around, it will execute the logic inside the code. The assembly, when I say the global assembly cache, I mean, of course, this. It has to be located over here. And in order to implement this specific email listener, there were several components required. First, the one that we're pointing to from the background runtime service. And aside from that, in order to be able to show this custom activity over here, including in the menus, in all the menus on the side, you have to add a few extra components, which we're not going to be going into right now as in the scope of this webinar. It's a separate craft entirely. So we got to the point. It loads up this email listener assembly, and the mechanism for it to work is via the API. And that's what you don't see over here in the designer, unfortunately. This isn't your standard activity where you fill out a form. Although it inherits code-wise, it inherits from the form activity in Sequence, it behaves entirely differently. It's meant to be populated from the outside world inwards. So it's populated, the data is populated inside the Sequence database, and using the API methods that Sequence exposes, it creates a new workflow instance, and it kicks it off. If anybody's familiar with it, kicks and instantiates a new workflow. Once we're past this, it goes down the path like anything you've seen before. The right-hand side over here is simulation. We're not going to go through it. I could take any of the incoming parameters that I have from the header, be in this case the priority, and I could, if I choose, send if it's high priority, I would send a message to the manager saying that. Again, this isn't a very realistic scenario because everybody sends high priority emails. You would create a more complex business rule based on the sender's full address or domain, and other text analysis. The idea being the same. The information is already stored like any other form in Sequence, and that's how you look at it through the wizard. Like we saw before, over here the assign activity, we just populated a few of the details, so you can see the variables. So we can see them over here in the grid, the subject and the from, and a few of the other things. It went down to the routing activity, the first one that we sent to James. James chose finance, IT, operations, or whatever, and the switch activity, similar to what you have in version 6. We'll choose one of the four departments where the work will get started. We didn't write up a whole workflow over here. It goes through simulating the work that happens inside. Finally, the summary is sent out to all the interested parties, and the workflow ends. Like Ellie said before, and we should emphasize this. Each one of these human steps, especially the first one, the first routing step, can absolutely be replaced by an automated business rule. There's no problem in the world to do it. We have an abundance of examples. If you have the information, if you requested the information that you need, again, if your email senders are including it, then you can probably take care of, the famous Pareto rule. 80% of the 80-20, 80% would be automated, and your 20 problematic or doubtful data, 20% of it would be forwarded to for human intervention. That would probably give you the best combination of efficiency and quality of work. Before we go back to the PowerPoint and the conclusions, are there any questions directed specifically at the stuff we covered over here for me?
Well, Shlomo, I want to ask what kind of language limitations there might be as far as emails coming in different languages. Is Sequence able to handle multi-language?
Yes, it is. We tried it. We tested it with English, all the European languages, including the special characters. We tested it with Chinese characters, and we've had no problems. Anything that you can express in Unicode will go through this. Like anything else, and because when you go about this in high volume, one of the things you want to consider is also monitoring of this. So if you have an overflow of emails, you want to have a tap at the beginning counting your emails, and you would monitor a specific ebb and flow. You would expect whatever between 100 emails and 1,000 emails per hour, and because of when you put this into an operational scenario, you could be deluged. Then you want to follow that. But other than that, we've tested it with pretty much any business scenario, any reasonable business scenario, and it worked perfectly well.
Shlomo, we have a question from Ricardo asking as follows. Shlomo, is the workflow able to give responses to emails that it receives? Like after going through the filter for junk mail, would it be able to automatically respond to the sender that the email was or was not accepted?
Absolutely. This same activity that we have over here at the end, the workflow summary, you could put in the same sort of thing over here at the beginning, saying thank you for your email. It's starting. The process is started. It's just like anything else. Once you're past this, the email activity, and you have that configured, the rest of it is like anything else. In message activity, you choose the parameter email from, and you send the message to that email address without any problem at all.
Okay, we have another question from Marcelo about the availability of this feature, how Sequence customers could get this email listener activity. Can you address that?
Absolutely. To obtain the email listener, we'll be happy to. If you could contact us after the webinar offline, contact myself, and I will forward it in context to each person's account manager over here at PNMsoft, and they'll be able to contact you about the details.
Okay, and if you are listening to this webinar and you're not a current customer of PNMsoft, please just email. You can email myself, LESELIS@PNMsoft.com, and I can put you in touch with our team here. Go ahead, Shlomo.
Okay, as for versions, we did it over here. We demoed over here in Sequence 7. The principles of what we employed over here in the Sequence API are the same in Sequence 6. You would, of course, compile your project to fit the version, but as for syntax and available features, it's exactly the same thing in Sequence 6.
Excellent. So you now basically shown us the trick, the magic of the email listener, explained how it's done. What's next, Shlomo? What other listening features can we bring to the world of BPM?
All right, just one. I see two more questions over here. If you'd like further, this is from Rupert. If you'd like further information as to the commercial aspects of it, again, if you could email Ellie or myself, I'll be happy to refer you to a PNMsoft account manager. And licensing restriction here also. This is account manager's terrain entirely. Let's see what else we have.
I think we do have one more interesting question from Ricardo, even though perhaps somewhat covered by what you mentioned earlier. If I attach images, etc., on the email body, can the forms show them?
Let's see, Ali, does your email include a signature with images? No. Let me see if I can quickly send one.
I'll send one off. I'll send one off to you right now.
With HTML, and we'll loop back to that in a bit. What else do we have? So we said images, okay. Barcode scanning. Barcode scanning incoming emails. I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that, but if it's a barcode scanner that the new one with the squares, again, once the email comes in, it's all the same. And if you're talking about something directly from the barcode scanning hardware, that would be something else, I think. That would require a different look at it. Very possibly it's the same foundation, but it would require some customization. All right. Let's see if Ellie's email came through.
I'll just give me half a moment here. I'm just sending it off. Okay, I just sent it off right now. So it'll probably take a couple seconds to get through to you. Just see if we have any further. One moment.
Here we are.
Okay.
Well, you know, it's the Olympics now. London is very packed, and here you have it. So you can see this is an HTML rendering of the email. It includes images. But again, I have to limit myself. This wasn't tested in every different combination of language and scenario and encoding and everything else. The standard encodings you can see were tested, and they were successfully displaying correctly. All right, let's go back then to the theory. What else do we have? Ellie, would you like me to continue?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll support you on this if you need support, but please go ahead.
All right. We have a few others. Anybody that's a lot of you will probably be familiar with these. The database listener that will point itself at any table in pretty much any database that's accessible from the sequence database environment. Can read out of that and kick off workflows based on that incoming information. The SharePoint listener, which is a event-based listener that listens into adding and editing and removal and check-ins and checkouts and SharePoint document lists, and will kick off workflows again based on that incoming metadata, which includes the document details, the 25 or 30 properties of the newly created document or edited documents. The web service listener, the machine interface, trading XML with any external system, so that you can call from a variety of even from legacy systems, provide sequence through that web service request inside the XML with all the required information, and kick off a workflow. We even have a Twitter listener, although I haven't seen it yet personally, that you can follow your social media mentions of specific keywords, your company name, and the likes, and kick off workflows whenever anything new comes in.
I just wanted to open up people's kind of eyes towards what a Twitter listener might be useful for in a business. That could be used in case a business wants to, let's say a PR division or marketing division wants to jump on any mention of the company in the media or in Twitter. Someone's tweeting about your company, you want to know about it, that could kick off a process. Or very often these days, people communicate with their customers via Twitter. So that could be almost, instead of getting an email from a customer, getting a direct Twitter message from a customer. So you could have it both ways.
That is true. Although the proper terminology, and this I know from my eldest daughter, is called a tweet. It's
yes,
not a tweet. It's
right.
A tweet.
It's absolutely a tweet. I am a
very important.
I am on Twitter, and people can follow me there as well. I'm well aware. Go ahead.
All right. And lastly, through the API, less commonly thought of ideas, CRM integration. You have a customer relations management interface of any different kind. The older ones, the first versions of the Microsoft, you can use the Sequence API, so that from whatever CRM you're using, you call the Sequence API when a new lead is added, so that you can quality check it or welcome them in any way. As an example, you could end of month or end of quarter periodical workflows that will go and aggregate whatever information was collected. You don't have to remember to do that on your own. Again, collect the information, kick off a Sequence workflow through the API. I don't think we have it written down over here, but it's this is also about aggregated Twitter listening, so that you're not necessarily interested in every single mention of your name, but rather a statistical representation on a weekly or monthly basis, with a division of based on keywords of positive and negative. You can take this to pretty much anywhere you want. You would collect the information for over a period of time, and that would give some statistical significance to the data that you have.
Shlomo, just regarding the Sequence API, the last point there, what this means is that if your organization has some kind of an external stimulus, whether it's something that happens in a physical location or on one of your company websites, that you need whatever that action is to kick off a BPM workflow, you can use the Sequence API in order to make that happen. And we have several organizations who use Sequence in that manner. So that really, in a way, it kind of opens up the field for any kind of automated self-starting workflow.
Okay, and I think we've covered all that. There's one question: would this apply to triggers in SAP? I wish I could crown myself as a SAP professional. I'm not, but if it's anything like what I've seen, the BAPI functions, the sort of .NET side of it, then I'm pretty sure that if that trigger can call a web service, can call a URL, can do anything web-based, then it can interface enough into Sequence in order to send whatever information you need from SAP to Sequence and then kick off a workflow. These are some cool ideas we have over here. Can we start a workflow with a Google Calendar event? I know that Google exposes through its API pretty much everything that you can see in the human interface, in mails, in calendars, in security, and everything else with Picasa and YouTube. Again, not from any absolute knowledge, but from what I've seen from the Google API, you could probably create a periodical like the email listener. Instead of going POP3 to an SMTP, this would go to the Google API with the credentials that you give it, with the stored set of credentials, and check your calendar for anything new. It would require some checking. I don't know from any absolute knowledge. The email listener created a new case in the database listener able to start work. Absolutely, the database listener is able to start workflows.
Sorry, what was the question there, Shlomo?
the email listener created a new ticket. Question is the database listener similarly able to kick off to start new workflows? The answer is yes. The database listener is also able to join in on a workflow in the middle. If you can provide a key that matches sorry, the newly added line that the database listener just picked up, for instance, a new order in your orders table, and you have a key that can match that with an existing workflow, then it would be smart enough to choose and say, oh, if I have this key in sequence, then I'm not going to kick off a new workflow. I'm going to cut in the middle. The database listener wouldn't be connected to the start activity. It would be connected somewhere in the middle, and that database listener, you would figuratively sort of hop into the workflow at that point and then move onwards with the new information that you have.
I think it's also
works both ways.
I think it's also important to point out, Shlomo, that our DB listener and our SharePoint listener and our web service listener are all out-of-the-box activities which come with all versions of Sequence. So that's something that people that current customers can already take advantage of course.
Absolutely. All right, we fielded a few questions while we're still on this slide. Anything else? If anybody has any questions, either through the chat, through the questions, any raised hands, we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. I guess, Shlomo, just to sum up what we've seen today for everyone here is we've seen the integration of external stimulus with BPM processes using Sequence. We've seen, Shlomo's shown the live demo of how incoming emails to an organization can kick off BPM workflows. We've seen the ability of those workflows to either route the email as a incoming task to a user, or obviously the possibility for Sequence to do part of the routing intelligently on its own. We've seen various other ways to self-start workflows, whether it's DB listeners, SharePoint listeners, web service listeners, Twitter listeners, and taking advantage of the Sequence API to basically use any kind of external stimulus in order to interface with the API to start a workflow. And again, of course, the benefits here: saving time, accuracy, not letting details fall through the cracks, and overall increasing efficiency when it comes to automation and BPM. So that's it on my end, Shlomo. Shlomo, maybe if you want to just move to the next slide, we'll show how people can get in touch with us. Okay, so you're very welcome to email us.
Absolutely.
ShlomoS@PNMsoft.com, les@PNMsoft.com. This webinar will be available on our Knowledge Center and on our website quite soon after the end of this broadcast. And please stay tuned for more great webinars here from PNMsoft. I'm Eli Stutz here, and Shlomo Steinmetz, Head of Support Team at PNMsoft. Thank you all very much for being with us today.
Thank you very much.